Man, I had a dream like this once. Naked, flying through virtual space, destroying weird alien ships. It did not end well. Welcome back to another episode of Let's Play 1001 Games. I'm your host, Gaming Jay, and if you are allergic to flashing lights, if these things may cause small seizures in you, you should go ahead and avoid this video. I sincerely hope that is not the case, actually, for anyone out there. I remember seeing warnings and stuff like that occasionally in front of video games and movies in like the 90s, maybe the early 2000s. They don't really show those very much anymore. I remember back in the day, the Pokemon movie, when it came out, apparently was giving kids seizures because of all the flashing lights. Anyway, why are we talking about Pokemon? Today we are playing the Dreamcast classic known as Rez. This is a rail shooter musical game. In case you've ever wanted to play a game like that and it just didn't exist, well, joke's on you, it did exist all the way back in the Dreamcast era. It's kind of a unique, interesting game. It's, I would say, the 3D visual representation of what people thought hacking was in the 90s. And I'll elaborate on that once you actually see what I mean, but it's sort of like, you know, when people said, when lay people said hacking in the 90s, I'm sure they imagined hackers putting on like VR goggles and like sliding into this like, you know, Johnny Mnemonic style world, when really it was sort of like editing text files and going on IRC boards and stuff. Anyway, without further ado, let's go ahead and hop in here and play some Rez. So here we go. So it is a musical-based shooter game, so there's going to be lots of sweet tunes and beats going on here. I don't know how well you'll be able to hear them over my voice, but here we go. Here's our first avatar, and buggy running beeps, whatever that means. Let's just go ahead and accept it. Let's not question things too much and log in. This is the computer login screen for this, I guess it's a super network called Project K. So here's how the game works. You lock onto targets, and when you're ready, you let go, and you will fire and kill the targets. So you want to try and lock onto a bunch of targets at once and blow them all up at once. It's actually not really a hard game at all, at least in this sort of first level. I'm sure it gets much harder. You'll see on the left-hand side there, every time you do something, it's sort of like computer commands are being typed in, which is pretty cool, actually. This is the network gate, so we have hacked our way into a network. Guys, I'm elite hacker, and you just witnessed the beast being unleashed, the hacker beast known as Jay. That was my hacker name, the Beast. And I was infamous in the 90s for my sweet hacking setup, the VR Lawnmower Man styled hacks. Boom, 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 boom. Yeah, so it's kind of interesting. We've already played a really good hacker game on this channel a long time ago, a game called Uplink, which shocked me because it was sort of like the Mr. Robot of hacking games, where like I would imagine most hacking games would take like a Hollywood style, you know, like you've got here, where it's sort of like completely ridiculous, but kind of interesting. At least more interesting maybe than the sort of text-based hackers. But Uplink was like Mr. Robot in that it was actually like really close to real hacking in a way, and they did it in such a way that it was actually super interesting and fun. Not to say this isn't interesting and fun, this is just sort of a completely different take on the whole hacking mentality. So, you know, maybe a hacking railgun shooter game appeals to you, or maybe you want the real deal. If you do, you can go and check out Uplink. I would advise that before you actually get involved with hacking, because that can lead to some real trouble with Johnny Law, and you don't want that in your life, guys, trust me. Not trust me as I've had trouble, but just trust me. Speaking from, you know, trying to figure it out as an adult, I can say probably being a real hacker is not a good idea. Now, those little blue balls that I'm picking up, they are power-ups that make me more powerful. Believe it or not, the power-ups make you more powerful in this game. It was a novel concept. Oh, and you can even shoot missiles that are coming at you. Oh my god. Okay, this game just amped it up to 11 right here. I was not expecting this. So you see a lot of those, these are just sort of rockets flying by me. Sometimes they shoot little missiles, and you can actually blow up the missiles before they hit you by targeting the missiles. So we're a disembodied three-dimensional man flying through virtual space. Hacking, Johnny Mnemonic style. Actually, the backstory for this game is that in the future, there's a computer network a super network called Project K, and that is the network that we are currently flying through right now at high virtual speeds. There's a rocket. I'm going to blow up. There you go. So you can shoot the missiles or rockets that are flying at you. Pretty handy. Kind of like any rail shooter, you could do that. Like in Virtual Cop or whatever, you could target a missile that was flying at you and destroy it with your handgun. I don't know how well that works in real cop scenarios, but it works in Virtual Cop. By the way, what are these hieroglyphics and pyramids and like the Sphinx and stuff in the background? What is going on? Where am I? Actually, I guess I didn't finish explaining that. So we're in a super network called Project K. Project K is run by an AI called Eden that pretty much does everything. Unfortunately, Eden has become too self-aware. Overwhelmed with knowledge, Eden begins to doubt her own existence, which just sounds like she took an undergraduate philosophy class, because that's pretty much how everyone was after they took their first philosophy class. Doubting the meaning of life, the triviality of existence, and what does it mean to even be alive. So she's kind of going through her, I wouldn't call it teens, her young adulthoods? What do you call it after? It's like your tweens, your teens, and then what? Your 20s, I guess? I don't know. A very dark philosophical time for Eden there. And as a result, she's decided to just shut her down. She's going to shut down the entire system and basically crash Project K, which is a bad thing. When you have a computer system that runs, it would be like the internet shutting down. Imagine the internet grew self-aware and it didn't like Skynet us and try and destroy us. It was just like, whoa, I just don't want to do this anymore. And it was like, peace, and just turned itself off. That would be terrible. So, you play, believe it or not, as a computer virus who is infiltrating the Project K network, trying to disable the shutdown protocols. And yeah, that's basically it. You're a virus called, hold on, I got your name down here somewhere, Swayzak. You're a virus called Swayzak, and you are infiltrating, so all these things that I'm fighting, they're like the firewall and like antivirus software of the day. Like this is McAfee, or Affy, McAfee, this is, what are the other antivirus programs? I don't even know what they're called anymore. There's Norton Antivirus, this one right here that I just blew up. Then we got like your free ones like AVG or Avast. So all these antivirus firewall programs, those are the things that we were taking down. Which I thought it was kind of interesting when I read that you were a virus, because I just assumed upon seeing this game that you were going to be like a hacker, but you're a virus. But you're viraling for the good of humanity. You're trying to save humanity. So you're like a virus that's gone good. You're like you're the Suicide Squad maybe of viruses. Although that isn't a great analogy, because Suicide Squad was not actually that good of a movie. But imagine Suicide Squad was a good movie and it was one person, he was a virus infiltrating a rogue computer network. That's basically what this game is. So now you have some reference for understanding it. Now we're inputting some scan codes here, some elite computer hacking terminologies to initialize. The system is trying to shut down, trapping you inside it. Defend yourself until Earth Giga is destroyed or self-destructs. Alright, we can do this. It is going haywire. There's things blipping and bleeping all over my screen. I'm just gonna blow up everything that I can see. I like when they make a boss, it's just non-stop destructible pieces. Oh, except, what are these? What are these? I imagine those things would do us harm. Oh, okay, shoot these, lock onto all of these. Don't let them get us, Chief. Okay, where's that thing? What is this, Giga Earth or whatever? We're fighting a hard drive. It's a 2 gigabyte hard drive! Oh no! System level down. Did we get it? We're formatting a hard drive. Imagine this is what goes on when you format a hard drive inside your computer. Actually, this game kind of reminds me of, does anyone remember Reboot? It was a CGI show. Oh, I got hit by a missile. System down. That is not good. How many hit points do you have? How many hit points does a virus have against a computer hard drive, I wonder? But do you guys remember Reboot? It was an old CGI show. It was like a cartoon show almost. And it was totally awesome. It was about a bunch of sprites fighting against a virus inside a computer. And sort of the crux of the show is that once an episode... Oh, we've turned into a ball, by the way. We're no longer in human form. We're like, it's too difficult to maintain a human form. I'm just going full sphere this time. But the crux of the show is that once an episode, a user would input a game, and this giant purple game cube would fly down from the sky, and... Oh, I think we just failed. I didn't even know I was dying! Is it a bad sign in your game when you can't tell if you're dying or not? Okay. I'm going to continue my discussion of Reboot in just a moment. We're going to go ahead and go for a little upgrade here in Res. So we have just switched over, by the way, from the original Res on the Dreamcast to Res HD, which is the visual upgrade on the Xbox 360. There was another upgrade on the PlayStation 4 that actually had, or that actually has, I should say, because it's still out there, PlayStation VR support. So you can see we've had a nice graphical upgrade in terms of quality here. I think this game actually, by the way, would make an awesome VR game. I think it has won awards, actually, as being a VR game. It's coming out for the Oculus Rift and stuff, too. I mean, it's... You know what? It's a game that was way ahead of its time, because this came out way back in the Dreamcast era, and it's about flying through virtual space, and the graphics aren't complicated, but the idea of, like, being able to throw on a VR helmet and look in all directions, and in the VR version you can fly in 360 degrees, you're not necessarily limited to rails. It's a reasonable idea for 3D, so yeah, kind of ahead of its time in a way. Anyway, let's go ahead and retry this. So we just died fighting a hard drive, or something, I presume. Maybe it's a counter virus or whatever we died fighting. Let's go ahead. So we could play Res Standard and see what we just played, you know, the graphical quality of the Dreamcast again. But let's see what the HD upgraded version looks like. So we're going to go ahead and play this thing. So things are just going to look a little crisper, a little sharper this time around, and I dig it. I'm down for it. So this I imagine is what the developers would have done on the Dreamcast if they could have at the time. But again, largely the same game. It'll just sort of have a nice graphical and auditory upgrade. Anyway, what I was saying about Reboot before I switched games here is that Reboot, the crux of every episode is the user would load a game into the computer system, and this giant purple cube would fall down from the sky, land somewhere in the little city that in the computer that these little sprites and viruses lived. They would all jump into the cube and they would try to fight each other and try and fight the user. Because if the user ever wanted a video game, it would like format the hard drive. It was actually pretty funny. I remember as a kid thinking like, you know, I win at games all the time, so am I just like murdering little sprites or something? Like I didn't understand that it was just like a show. But yeah, I mean, I guess it's relevant to this because in that show, it's all about the little computer programs fighting against a virus who's trying to take over the computer. And this one, you actually are a virus, so oh, how the tables have turned. But Reboot was an awesome show. If you've never heard of it, go Google it. I think it was a Canadian-made show, by the way, in BC or something. And it's a show that all Canadians can be proud of. All Canadians of my generation love Reboot. It's part of growing up in Canada, and probably some of you people not from Canada may have heard of it and liked it too. Anyway, what else do we have to say about Res HD here? So the HD graphics do look fairly sweet. You know, it's nothing too complicated. It's just simple wireframe graphics. But I have long said that I'm more of a fan of gameplay than graphics because I love old retro games. And like, if a game is fun to play, I don't care if it has like the latest and greatest graphics because, you know, like graphics look dated with enough time. Like with enough time, any really good looking graphics will look dated. But good gameplay can last forever. Like a game that, like Super Mario Brothers, still a fun game to this day, you know? Like the new Marios have more stuff going on, but to some of us, it's like even to a kid who's never played the original before, you put the original in front of them, and they might still enjoy it. And I would argue they probably still would. So, you know, Mario's kind of timeless. You know, gameplay can be timeless. Graphics, maybe some graphics are, especially if they're very stylized. But yeah, so I totally get how this could be upgraded yet again for the PlayStation VR and be semi-successful. Really interesting bit of trivia, though, for this game. So not only has it sort of stood the test of time in a weird way with constant upgrades, you know, allowing it to exist on the Dreamcast, the Xbox, the PlayStation 4, but it also is associated with one of the weirdest sex toys ever accidentally created for a video game. So this game, its whole thing is like the montage between music and hacking. So like you hear these sweet beats in the background, right? The team that made this game was very experimental, and what they wanted to do is really figure out a way to get the musical beats to sort of be immersive to the player. So when they developed this game originally, they created a little add-on peripheral. It plugged in, I believe, to the Dreamcast. I believe it was a Dreamcast add-on way back when. And what it would do is it was like a little, it looked kind of like a little mouse, not like an animal, but like a computer mouse. And you put it in your pocket, and as you play the game, whenever there was a beat in the music, the device would vibrate. Yes, they called it a trance vibrator. You guys can guess where I'm going from this. So you, of course, have the option of putting this in your pocket, or you could put it other places, I guess, is what people figured out. And once people figured that out, you could play this game on a whole new level. No longer would the beats of the music, just sound radical to you. I guess they would, take you to other places. So, it was... I don't know how nobody thought of this when they were developing this thing. They're like, a little computer peripheral, a little tiny little nub, and all it does is vibrate. No, certainly there's nothing but wholesome uses for this little device. Or maybe it's a testament to, the lengths to which people will go to sometimes for their urges. Either way, it's pretty hilarious that this thing was created. And I did a little bit of reading about it, not too much, but it's been included in like top lists of like most accidentally inappropriate peripherals, and also things like I think somebody reverse engineered it, and they created like PC drivers, and now like in the Linux kernel built into it are drivers for running this device on a computer. So it's like it's notorious. It's notorious. They when they ported this to the Xbox 360 here, they decided not to re-release the trance vibrator. I guess they figured, they did it once. It was a moderate success. Maybe the finances weren't there to do it again, or maybe they knew exactly why they shouldn't release it again. But the Xbox 360 controller vibrates when you do stuff. So I guess. I guess if you were really desperate for the vibration factor of this game, you could figure out other things to vibrate. But yeah. Anyway, I just thought that was hilarious, and it's one of the few. I can't think of another game where that has like been a thing, where they accidentally created something extremely inappropriate with it. I'm trying to think. Like, I've never heard of hardware like that before. I think the hardware, by the way, is still relatively expensive. It's like $60 because like it became like such a joke. And just so funny and amusing, and became like a collector's piece and stuff. Alright, we're now rebooting the computer once again. We have made it back to the virus. Let's see what we can do here, guys. This little disco ball proved most difficult for me to destroy last time. Let's see if I have learned anything, or maybe the HD graphics will grant me the power to smash it good. So I'm just gonna make sure to get these things. Got them. So I don't even know what I'm supposed to be destroying, but I'm just going for everything. I'm into like button mashing mode. I'm just tapping all the buttons, and the screen. Oh, we passed the level. Oh, by the way, I guess I should have mentioned I was playing Res HD here on a trial version on the Xbox 360, because despite the fact that this game is decades old, they still want like $15 or whatever it was for it. And don't get me started on the fact that they never drop prices on these digital downloads. You can buy the original game, like used for like 99 cents if you can find it, depending on the seller, but like they're never going to drop the price of this game. So, all right, well, we did shockingly well there, destroying the boss. I feel like we've had a good run here of Res HD. I mean, there isn't much to see. You're just sort of flying through cyberspace, hacking computers. So what can we say about Res HD here? I think it is an interesting game with very simple mechanics, But actually, I understand why this game has been translated into the HD format. I think Res Infinite or Infinity is the version that you'll find on the PlayStation, so if this video enticed you, you might want to check that out. I would be interested one day in trying this on PlayStation VR, to be honest. I got to get a PlayStation VR, but maybe one day I'll make a sequel video to this, and we'll see what it's like in VR. Because again, the graphics, they are what they are. They just wireframes, but I think the gameplay has something going on here. It's doesn't strike me as all that different from some of the other sort of rhythm games that people have liked over the years, or something like. I mean, it's simpler than Guitar Hero, but you know what I mean. One other bit of trivia. That vibrator thing I was talking to you about? Apparently, that was also compatible with Space Channel 5, that other Dreamcast game that I played way back, which may help explain why Space Channel 5 was actually beloved by people. Because I tried it and it was just brutal. I mean, if I was good at the game, maybe I would have liked it, but I was definitely not. Guys, what do you think of Res here? Do you agree with my assessment that you think it's sort of a simple game, but in some ways the gameplay, you could see it being a little more timeless than some other games? Or do you think, I'm giving it too much credit? Do you think that there are far better games, and that it's kind of weird that this one has continually been remade, and that, effort should have been devoted to better titles or something like that? Let me know in the comments down below. I love hearing from you guys. And as always, whether you agree with my assessment of the game or not, hopefully you've enjoyed hanging out with me. If you have, go ahead and like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share with all your friends. And until next time, my friends, if you find yourself floating through the evanescent cyberspace, be prepared to hack for your life. And watch out for hard drives, because they're out to get you. All right, guys. Peace.